Welcome back to Leafs Talk Weekly. I'm Jake Varcoe, and I'm joined by Matt Cardadeiro from TSN Radio. How you doing, Matt?
Doing fantastic, Jake. Glad to be back for another round here of Leafs talk. Yeah, we had some a little bit of a garbage game occur that we seem to be talking about again. I think the last time we chatted, it was following up that Edmonton performance that I'm sure everyone wants to forget. Lots to discuss in Leafs land. So
Yeah, so since the last time we spoke, we've seen the Leafs play three games. They won two of those three games, and the game they lost was against the Vancouver Canucks. Not a very pretty game from the Toronto Maple Leafs. However, they defeat the Calgary Flames in a tight contest, and then another tight contest the other night against the New Jersey Devils. They like to see a team pull out these tight road contests like that.
yeah, 100%. It was two really nice wins. First off, starting with the one in Calgary. Just they were down in the game, and it was nice to see them be patient, and even when the game was tied, not try and cheat on offense or anything like that, and kind of just grind out a little bit of a greasy win. Even greasier goal. That was the game winner by Yarn Crook that just literally trickled over the goal line. So obviously going to need goals like that in the playoffs when the postseason rolls around here. Yeah, it was nice to see them get kind of a little bit of a gutsy win. And then fast forward to Hockey Night in Canada Saturday against the Vancouver Canucks. Big time return for Mr. Luke Shen, and he actually started off the game with a big hit on the sideboard, and then um, had a little bit of struggle in his own end and stuff, getting the puck out and whatnot. And Vancouver just looked like they came ready to play, whereas the Leafs looked a little bit stagnant off the hop and couldn't really get their game going. And obviously, that multi-million-dollar power play that gave away the two shorthanded goals was not ideal. I believe in some of that post-game availability, a lot of the top guys, Matthews, Nylander, Marner, etc., Riley as well, took precedence for that and took responsibility. So nice to see the top guys obviously kind of take responsibility for a little bit of the lack of concentration that they tended to have on that particular power play. And at the end of the day, like this team has much depth as they've added in recent weeks over the trade deadline, and now it's come and gone, obviously. So this is the lineup, right? But at the end of the day, the top players, the guys who get paid the big bucks, that's who's going to make the difference at the end of the day. And against Vancouver, it seemed to be the case where obviously it just worked in not so much in their favor. They ended up kind of costing the game there for the team. And then obviously the New Jersey game was a real nice comeback effort there in the third. Three goals that they scored. Obviously, nice for Matthews to get his 29th of the year. I think he's obviously not been very consistent in terms of goal scoring this year, and nice play by Bunting, obviously, to kind of dummy the puck and let it fall onto Matthews' stick, and he had time and space to let it rip and got it past the goalie. So it was nice to see that, obviously, with the game winner, and yeah, now we move along and we focus on Edmonton essentially, right? And that's the Leafs' next opponent this coming Saturday.
Yep, they'll face off against the Edmonton Oilers again. We'll get into a preview of that matchup a bit later on in the show. So just to kind of recap that West Coast trip, they head out to Seattle, got a 5-1 victory. That was a pretty dominant win. Edmonton, not a very pretty game. The Oilers were extremely dominant that entire game, 5-2, and honestly, it could have been a higher scoring game than that. Then the following night, Thursday, they go to Calgary, get a tight 2-1 victory, and you like to see those low scoring games. That's kind of more of a playoff style of hockey, and the Toronto Maple Leafs managed to pull out a victory like that. That's not really their brand of play necessarily. They're more of a higher scoring team, but you like to see them pull out a win in those low scoring games as well, show a little bit of variety in what their capabilities are. Vancouver, that game, not pretty at all. That third period really got away from them. Not something that you want to see. And then against the New Jersey Devils, something that I really liked from that game was the fact that they persevered. They came back. They were down in that third period, and it was a back and forth battle. They scored 2 goals late in that period. Michael Bunting and then Austin Matthews playing the hero for the Maple Leafs. And you know what? Those two, great. But the player that really stood out to me from this road trip and honestly throughout the entire season, I think Mitch Marner has been the Toronto Maple Leafs MVP this season. 23 goals on the year. He had a great goal against the Calgary Flames. And then that shorthanded goal the other night against the New Jersey Devils was fantastic. What do you think? Who do you think the Maple Leafs MVP has been this year?
Yeah, I'm going to ride with you on that one too. There's no doubt that Marner's been 100% the most consistent, most productive, most impact forward that the Leafs have had throughout the entirety of the season. I would say Nylander is a close second this season. Obviously, he's going to have a career high in goals and probably finish with just in and around 40, if not 45. It'd be interesting to see if he can crack the 50. That would be a headline for sure. But 100% Mitch Marner. In terms of all the aspects that he plays, whether it's penalty kill, power play, he's always a factor. Um, this guy, he just loves to play hockey. You could see it in his game. His attention to detail is extremely good. Just a small little tight plays that whether it's a chip off the boards or a little bit of an extension of his stick, to always be in good defensive position and always get under the puck and stuff like that and be on the right side of the opposition. Those little things translate to him being able to get on the offensive end of things and produce things for the Leafs, obviously. And he definitely drives the offense when he's out there for sure.
And, Marner, Nylander, they've been great offensively for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that's not to take anything away from Austin Matthews. It hasn't been his best year offensively, but defensively, he's really stepped up his game. And I believe he's still leading the National Hockey League in block shots by forwards. I think he's up for Selke discussion at the end of the year. What do you think about that?
I would say so too, man. I mean, I never said this publicly, but early on in the season, I just kind of got a sense from obviously the kind of the way they lost last season in the playoffs. Again, obviously not kind of getting over the hump and getting that first round win. Um, just seemed to me that there was a quote out there. I couldn't tell you or pinpoint the exact timeline, but from Matthews just saying that like I think someone asked him whether it was at the NHL awards when he had just picked up his consecutive Rocket Richard trophies for leading the league in goals. But they asked him that like kind of what are you looking for in terms of like something in regards to his individual accolades, and he basically just flat out said like I don't care, man. Like I just want to win. And I mean that core of players they've been together now for quite some time, and I think that's really kind of the blunt of things for that group and kind of the main focus in terms of having playoff success and postseason success, which is essentially the one big thing missing from all their resumes right now. It would be great if he won a Selke add to his own trophy case, obviously, but I think his main focus is just winning, and he's definitely cemented himself as one of the league's best defensive forwards. He's his back checking, his positioning in the D zone and stuff like that. Obviously, the offensive side of things haven't really. I don't really necessarily think it's obviously we know he has the ability, but like he's done it again and again year after year. This is really I think he's also been like plagued by a lot of injuries this season. Little obviously like playable injuries, but he's been bagged up throughout the season. Obviously had that shot that hit him in the wrong side of the knee last week as well. So yeah, a few things to look out for obviously with their franchise center going into the postseason. Be interesting to see now if a player like Matthews, with all the work that he's put in on both ends of the puck this year, if he gets some rest down the stretch here before the postseason starts.
And as much as you want to see Austin Matthews excel offensively, put up the numbers that he has in years past, I feel as if him stepping his game up defensively like he has this year, and with the offensive production that the Leafs are able to put up throughout the entirety of the lineup, I feel as if that actually makes the team a more complete team. And that's something really important going into the playoffs. This group has been together for quite some time now, and they haven't even made it out of the first round. I don't need to remind you of that, but they haven't made it out of the first round. And with Matthews going back, doing more stuff defensively, blocking more shots, I mean, that's something that I feel will help the Toronto Maple Leafs as they go into the playoffs. You'd like to see him step up a bit more offensively, but I'm okay with taking some of that away and getting some more defensive production when the Leafs have all these other forwards that can produce.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that his play defensively is definitely um, up the kind of the morale of the team. Obviously, when your top players are going and setting examples like that, I think a lot of your bottom six are going to want to kind of get going in the same fashion. Um, Obviously, being responsible at both ends and stuff plays into that a lot in the playoffs. And yeah, just a bunch of good things that happened over the last stretch of the last three games since we chatted. Some bad, obviously, as well. So some stuff that the team can definitely forget, mainly that Vancouver performance. But yeah, a lot of good things that they did as well, and obviously they can continue to kind of build off of. And I think the more and more that this group, obviously with the new guys, kind of starts to get wins and even a lot of like short like tight games and stuff like that, and the comeback win obviously last night against the Devils, and the Devils are no slouch of a team. They're a great team. They've had a great season. They obviously just picked up arguably the biggest fish in free agency, or sorry, not free agency, trade deadline acquisition in Timo Meier as well. And yeah, they didn't back down. They stuck with it. They didn't cheat offensively. They waited for their chances. They were hard on pucks. All things that you want to see from a Stanley Cup contender, which is no secret that the Maple Leafs clearly are.
And you know what else you want to see from a Stanley Cup contender is depth pieces producing, able to come in and make an impact for your team when other players are down with injuries. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're plagued by injuries right now. Against the New Jersey Devils, they had a long list of players that were out, but headlining that group, Ryan O'Reilly and John Tavares. A lot of these other players have been out for the majority of the season, so that's not really something we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Ryan O'Reilly, John Tavares being out, and Tavares, it's a day-to-day illness kind of thing. And with Ryan O'Reilly, the Maple Leafs' new big trade piece, he's out, expected to be out for 4 weeks with a broken finger. Not ideal for the Toronto Maple Leafs to go out there and get a player and have him get injured right away. I think that definitely holds back some of his potential with, getting accustomed to being in this lineup, building that chemistry with the team. But at the same time, it gives other players opportunities to see what they're capable of doing and how they can slot into the lineup as this team is hoping to go deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely the not ideal. Ryan O'Reilly going down with an injury, broken finger, obviously. The nature of the injury itself, um, not necessarily a best case scenario, but at least the guy will be able to kind of, obviously with a few days recovery. I think he just had surgery yesterday, the day prior. So he's obviously recovering right now. But yeah, the timeline is set for 4 weeks. He's on LTIR, so yeah, must miss at least 10 games or 24 days, essentially. And yeah, once he gets back, it'll be nice to have him back in the lineup, obviously. But I think somewhere in between there, he's going to get back into practicing with the guys at full force once obviously he gets that strength back in that hand and that finger, following his surgery, obviously. So at least he'll be able to kind of keep his feet going and skate a little bit. I would assume in the probably next week and a half or so. At least be able to kind of get back on the ice and at least maybe not kind of have to keep his feet stagnant for a very long time and keep the legs going, right? So not ideal. You obviously wanted to get game reps and game action with you prior to the playoffs, but I believe his pending return is in and around early April. So we shall see if that stays the course, and hopefully you can get back for a handful of games before the playoffs and get and kind of pick up right where you left off, right? So that would be nice to see for the Leafs' big deadline acquisition, right?
Yeah, definitely. And if I'm a part of the Toronto Maple Leafs front office, I'm not playing this too conservatively. Obviously, I want to see him get healthy. That's the most important thing. But you want to see him build some more chemistry with the Maple Leafs lineup. He's only been in for a few games, so come back, get to full game speed, and get in that lineup as soon as possible. Obviously, the way that it lines up, 4 weeks, that's a month. Right now, it's March 8th as we record this video. So we're looking right towards the end of the regular season, right before the playoffs. He might be able to get some regular season reps. That would be ideal. But if not, just at least get him skating with the team.
Yeah, at the very least, right? You'd want to get him back, kind of getting reacquainted with the group. Obviously, I mean, I'm sure he'll be a factor in the room after games. Whoever has given away that championship belt and stuff like that after games, I'm sure he'll be right in the mix there over the coming weeks. But yeah, ideally, you want to get him back into game shape ASAP. And at the end of the day, there's only so much that the Leafs management or Leafs training staff has control over. Um, Broken finger is something that you'd have to kind of just let it heal itself and let it kind of rest up and until that bone structure obviously gets back feeling back to normal, right? So not too much from the Leafs management perspective or training staff perspective that they could really do to kind of expedite this, but essentially, yeah, you would envision an earlier return versus a later return being ideal for the Maple Leafs for sure. We didn't even talk about John Tavares yet. He's been out. I think he's listed as day to day right now, so that's something to keep an eye on. He took two pretty hard hits during the Vancouver game. Obviously, one from Tyler Myers where Jake McCabe stepped up for him and dropped the gloves. But yeah, obviously not ideal. Don't want to see your captain go down. Um, but I think this is more of a precautionary move from Sheldon Keefe and kind of obviously with Ryan O'Reilly out now. Don't want to lose a John Tavares just because maybe he's not feeling himself and maybe the awareness is um, both offensively and defensively isn't there. And to avoid potentially him getting hit hard once more and kind of putting his postseason in jeopardy, even at the slightest, is not something that I would want to sign up for if I was Sheldon Keefe. So I think more precautionary is the case with Tavares, and who knows, he might be in the lineup come Saturday night.
Well, you certainly hope that he's back in the lineup as soon as possible with the absence of Ryan O'Reilly. But yeah, if it's a precautionary thing and they don't think he's ready to play, they're not going to play him. So, I mean, that's really the moral of the story with John Tavares being day to day. There's some uncertainty about the whole thing, but that it all remains to be seen how that plays out. Something that you mentioned that I want to touch on a little bit is that championship belt. That's not something we've really seen with the Toronto Maple Leafs in years past. And I really like that. It seems like a really good team building thing. Like when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays, for example, they've got the jacket that they always put
Yeah.
on after home runs. There's some cool things that go on around sports with like building team building kind of thing. And I feel like that's really great for this team to really bond here.
Yeah. I definitely agree. It's cool. If you're an avid follower of the Maple Leafs and do by happen to by chance follow them on Instagram, you'll clearly see um, they'll kind of post out after games and stuff like that or big wins when they have some sort of cool or clickbait worthy interaction in the dressing room after that. I'm sure Leafs Nation loves to see. Obviously, the behind the scenes view. So yeah, no, I definitely think it's pretty cool. I haven't actually seen the last couple of games who it was given out to, but haven't been keeping tabs on that in particular. But definitely to what you said, 100%. It's definitely a good team bonding thing, especially for a lot of the new guys coming in. If they have a hardworking game and stuff like that, and worthy of the championship belt, and get to give a little team speech after a big win. So I'm sure the players love it, and I'm sure kind of keeps them motivated, to keeps them a little bit on their toes. Something to look forward to, you know. Obviously, they're not going out there trying to win games to win to see who can throw over the championship belt over their shoulder, but definitely something to kind of give a little bit more incentive for the players for sure.
It's a little friendly bragging rights in the locker room, that's for sure. And I'm
Exactly.
like when I was a kid playing sports, like I won some stickers on the back of my helmet and baseball, and that was like that was fun. It felt really cool to win that. And obviously, as a professional athlete, it's probably lesser. Your goal is you're mainly focused on winning, I would hope, but it's still pretty cool.
100%. Yeah, it's definitely something that obviously the players kind of look forward to. They're kind of all smiling ear to ear when the post game ends, obviously, and they're in that dressing room, whether they're throwing water on each other or whatever the case might be. Yeah, that championship belt's a pretty cool little addition to the Leafs locker room for sure.
And this upcoming Saturday night, there will be an opportunity to win one of those championship belts as the Toronto Maple Leafs go face off against the Edmonton Oilers for the second time in, I'll say, a week or two, a week and a half. Uh, the Oilers and Maple Leafs faced off the other night at Rogers Place in Edmonton, and it was a beatdown. The Oilers emerged victorious by a score of 5-2. Not a pretty night for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's always fun to watch Connor McDavid go up against Austin Matthews, and I posted a video comparing the two. I don't really think there is much of a comparison between the two, to be honest. I think, you know what, I'll save it for you. You can go watch the video. But um, it's going to be a fun matchup. And I think the Toronto Maple Leafs have a distinct advantage of having a couple nights of rest after that New Jersey game. When you look at the Edmonton Oilers schedule, they were just in Buffalo the other night. Then they got to go to Boston, and then they got to go to Toronto. It's kind of like what the Maple Leafs had on their West Coast road trip, going to Seattle, Calgary, and then Edmonton before going to Vancouver.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be maybe yeah, a little bit of a flip the script action. Maybe we see a 5-2 Leafs victory this coming Saturday. And Edmonton maybe a little bit rusty out of the gate. But McDavid, that guy, he's a freak this year, man. He's scoring goals left, right, and center. Scoring from a lot of different areas on the ice. I don't know if you saw, but there was, I believe, a post game interview. I think he was getting interviewed by, I believe it was Gene Principe after an Oilers win, and he literally came out and said he's like, I'm not like an Austin Matthews who can just kind of rip it from anywhere, but he's been in and around the net a lot this season. Um, Obviously got the two goals. I think it was his fifth consecutive game when he played the Leafs last week that he had a two goal game. So very impressive statistics that this guy is putting up this season. In terms of the comparison between an Austin Matthews and a Connor McDavid, it's pretty tough to do so. I think they're different players. McDavid obviously plays with a great deal of speed, and that's his forte. That's kind of his go-to, and his skill set and hockey IQ and just offensive awareness and ability with the puck. Um, Once his speed takes him to where he's got to be, I mean, that just all takes over, right? Whereas um, Austin Matthews is just kind of a lethal, whether it be one-time shooter or just finding the slightest bit of room out on the ice, and he can kind of beat goalies from a lot of different areas. And um, great hand-eye as well on an Austin Matthews, and we've seen over the years him score in tight and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely difficult to compare the two in terms of their scoring abilities, if you will. But just to love to enjoy both of the players and what they both have to offer in their own separate ways for sure.
They're definitely both great players, but this year Connor McDavid's just been on a whole other level than any other player. And sure, Austin Matthews is doing things defensively, but I'll take the production of Connor McDavid this year. I mean, it's actually insane what he's doing right now. When you look at the Edmonton Oilers lineup, it's always interesting because it's like a former Toronto Maple Leafs squad over there. You got Cody Ceci, Zach Hyman, Jack Campbell. I feel like I'm missing someone too, but they've got a bunch over there.
They do. Well, now they don't have Tyson Berry because they just brought in Matthias Ekholm, so Tyson Berry's now with the Preds. But yeah, like they got the Zach Hymans, they got the Jack Campbells, the Cody Cece's as well. I don't think you miss anyone. I think that would actually cover it. But yeah, a lot of free agents that have left Toronto have found their way into the province of Alberta, out over at Rogers Arena. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a funny sight to see, seeing kind of the older wave of Leafs players that have kind of come through and essentially come and gone, right? But definitely, yeah, it's interesting when I think the biggest thing when Edmonton plays Toronto, you're always going to hear McDavid versus Matthews for sure.
And with Edmonton Oilers, highly skilled group, two of the top players in the National Hockey League. You could debate that it is the top two players in the National Hockey League, and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Um, Obviously, really talented offensive group. I think that they have potential to go pretty far in the playoffs. But when you look at their goaltending this year, I'm not a big believer in Skinner at this point in his career. And Jack Campbell, that contract's looking tough right now for the Oilers. Maybe the Maple Leafs dodged a bullet with that one. Well, that remains to be seen how the rest of his contract plays out. But Jack Campbell has had a really disastrous year for the Edmonton Oilers, and I'm not sure that this team can completely outscore their problems in the playoffs, but I think that they have the potential to go pretty far and make a deep run anytime you have Connor McDavid and Draisaitl on your team. What do you think of their potential here?
Well, did they not make it to the conference finals last year?
They did.
I believe they made it to the conference finals last year, right? So, um, and they had Mike Smith in net for them. Um, so yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. I do think if Edmonton, sorry, I was going to say Calgary, if Edmonton does run uh, into issues when it comes to the playoffs, it would be number one goaltending. I would put as their number one kind of red flag, anyways, or something that management and coaching staff would maybe be a little bit worrisome about. Number two, um, I would say maybe their forward depth. They're not the deepest forward group. They do have some players that have kind of bursted onto the scene this year, that they've brought in. Obviously, they got the likes of Evander Kane, Draisaitl, and Connor McDavid. Keller Yamamoto as well. That's had a little bit more of a scoring touch recently this year, as of late as well. I think he had a 2 goal game the other night. I think more so the playoff type goals might be a little bit of an issue for them. Um, but yeah, it all remains to be seen. We're all forecasting, right? But when you have Connor McDavid, like you said, Jake, you're kind of 1 to 2 goals up already before the puck drops already. So that's definitely an X factor to keep an eye on, and I'm sure he'll lead the way in the playoffs, whether his team's on his back or they're leading or they're actually chipping in themselves as well. But I'm sure he'll be leading the way for sure.
Definitely. It's going to be an exciting matchup on Saturday at Scotiabank Arena, downtown Toronto, between the Edmonton Oilers, Toronto Maple Leafs. Always fun to watch those two teams play. And I actually checked out ticket prices. Not that I'm in Ontario, but I checked out ticket prices for that game, and it's pretty crazy to go watch Connor McDavid play. If you want to do that, have fun. But honestly, Matt, any other comments you'd like to add before we head out here?
I think I'm just interested to kind of see how the depth plays out with the Leafs roster over the next couple weeks. They even mentioned some of the depth guys that kind of stepped up into one in particular, Sam Lafredi, who stepped up into a second line center role last night, and um, Alexander Kerfoot, who's found his way onto Austin Matthews' wing. And that's something to keep tabs on as well. I think this guy's hit crossbars in consecutive games. So he's obviously not a shoot first guy. Seems to have a little bit more of a shoot first mentality over the last couple games. So it'll be interesting to see how that Kerfoot matchup plays out against other teams' top opposition. Obviously, the likes of Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. Um, Scary guys to go up against in the faceoff circle, right? And just on the other end of the ice. So I'm interested to see how that kind of plays out. I do think Bunting, whenever he does get a demotion from Sheldon Keefe, it's more just Keefe, anyways. It's just a little bit more of a kick in the pants to kind of get him rolling again because his scoring touch and his ability and his chemistry with Matthews and Marner is it's definitely undeniable. It's definitely there. So be interested to see how long this Kerfoot experiment on the top line kind of plays out. And then Lafreniere, he's showing a lot of speed in their top six. Obviously, playing his first game in the Leafs top six last night, but on the Yarncrook goal, very 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 strong play from him to kind of drive into the offensive zone with speed. Mike Johnson, I believe, was on the broadcast last night along with Gord Miller and Mike Johnson, the commentator for TSN. He color commentator, anyways, for TSN. He mentioned that Lafreniere definitely has some top end high speed for sure. So yeah, when he's coming in at you, he's a lot to deal with, and he's got some size and strength as well. So I'd be interested to see how kind of his role tends to grow. Is I'm sure Keith is probably not married to him being between Nylander and Yarncrook right now in the top six. We might see some different combinations. Might see maybe an increased opportunity for a guy like Alex Steeves or Bobby McMahon potentially on a call up, or I believe Pontus Holmberg got a chance in the top six, maybe a handful of games, one or two. So we'll like to see how kind of his development's continuing. Obviously, being down with the Marlies over the last couple of weeks with all the additions that have come in. So yeah, lots of things to kind of keep an eye on. The next big thing, obviously, is when Luke Schen's wife decides to give birth to their next child, and he's kind of back into the Leafs lineup. So that's another thing to keep tabs on. So I think he stayed back in Vancouver following the loss on Saturday night. So we will wait to see until Luke Schenn is back into the lineup as well, because that definitely provides some sandpaper on the back end for them and some stability on defense for sure.
And you mentioned a lot of interesting points there with a lot of the depth pieces like Sam Lafferty, Zach Gaston Reese is a guy you can throw into that conversation, Steves and Bobby McMahon. Like a lot of these guys are going to be fighting for roster spots come playoff time, especially if there's more injuries heading into the playoffs up on that forward group. So these are actually really important games. Every game going forward is a really important game for this Maple Leafs team to see how their lineup actually shapes up going into the playoffs. I think right now, like Sam Lafferty, in my opinion, he's a lock to be on this lineup come playoff time. But it's like more as you go further down the lineup, like Zach Aston Reese, Steves, Bobby McMahon, these guys are going to be fighting for playoff spots, fighting for spots on the roster come playoff time. And they're going to need to showcase what kind of impact that they can make in their limited time in the lineup if they want to consistently play come the first round series, likely against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Alex Kerfoot, I'm not a big fan of him up on the top line, but it is what it is. Right now, it's kind of just like we've seen the experiment a lot. We've seen him play up on that top line a number of times, but it is what it is. I mean, they've got injuries in the lineup right now. I just do not want to see that come playoff time. And
I don't think that'll be the case playoff time. I think for that little bit of Marley's group that I was chatting about, like Holmberg, Steves, McMahon, those guys, at least one of them, like they all know amongst themselves that one of them is going to be on the top of that list when there's an injury that happens in the postseason. So I think it's just putting their best foot forward and showing kind of Sheldon Keefe what they can do to be effective in whatever role that they might need to play come playoff time, and wanting to be kind of on the top of that bubble list, if you will, of Marlies players that will essentially get the call when injuries do happen in the postseason. And we know a lot of guys do play through a lot of injuries in the postseason, but some hopefully not for the Leafs, but some unplayable, obviously, that those guys will be chomping at the bits to get into this Leafs lineup come postseason.
Definitely. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this all shapes up going forward. They'll play against the Edmonton Oilers Saturday night, and That's all we have for you here today on Leafs Talk Weekly. I'm Jake Varcoe.
I'm Matt Cardadeiro.
Thank you for watching. And if you haven't already, make sure you check out other content on the channel. If you like this video, like the video and be sure to subscribe as well. Thank you.